From the center of the galaxy, this is ForceCenter, a show about Star Wars pop culture, the ultimate adventure, life itself. I'm Ken Knapsack.
I'm Jen Landa.
I'm Joseph Scrimshaw.
And we are here today to continue a deeper look at Andor, an episode of the Andor Report here. We're going to dive into the Force healer, being a messenger, clarity, all these wonderful things in a couple of big moments in the show. We'll dive into that. And we hope you're going to enjoy the ride with us. We always want to remind you that today's podcast is brought to you by our own merch shop. That's right. We're trying to highlight that. It is on Fourth Wall. We still have an active TeePublic merch shop, but we're kind of transitioning over to Fourth Wall. Check out our merch store and pick up a t-shirt to help support the show and represent ForceCenter out in the galaxy. More items, including pint glasses, coffee mugs, hats, will be added soon. So head on over to ForceCenter shop .fourthwall.com. It's too much. All these
you're releasing some sort of secret code, right? By repeating slash and dash and expertly making it sound like confusion while the real message is getting out to the rebellion.
Those bot spam podcast comments we get sometimes that are good analysis. I have this Bitcoin thing, yes. ForceCenter-shop.fourthwall.com. ForceCenter-shop.fourthwall.com. Or if you're watching on YouTube, the link is down below. So check it out. There you go. That's out of the way. Kind of.
Yeah, we need to reboot the Ken robot.
Yes.
That's you've been replaced with.
A lot of things going on.
Yes. Excellent. I'm really excited to talk about this topic. This has been fun to do these extra Andor reports. The shows are so rich with ideas. There's stuff that I feel like we only get to touch on when we discuss the big picture of the show. And we did talk a little bit about the Force healer and kind of the meaning of that scene. But I feel like a lot of our conversation was sort of focused on the narrative sort of need of it and how it gave Cassian structure and gave Cassian purpose and gave the show a sort of an arc onto itself of what is Cassian's journey? Does he accept his journey? So it didn't feel like so it felt like the show resolved itself and wasn't just like and now it's totally emotionally unresolved. But I want to talk more about not just that Force healer scene and what it means to Cassian, but what it means to us and to the depiction of the galaxy, that this was a show that was largely forceless, largely without magic until this big moment. So that's right. I'd love to start, Jen, with your thoughts on, the Force being largely absent from Andor until we get to the Force healer. Did you like spending time away from the Force up until that moment? And what did it mean to you to have a break from the Force?
I liked it. It felt in line with the tone of the show, very grounded realism. And it also made that scene, those moments, more profound when the Force healer was introduced. Me personally, I don't even know if I would have needed a full scene. Like, I would have been fine with just even less, which feels a little weird because for me, the Jedi, the Force, that is my jam. That is what I love. But here, I was so engrossed in the story in a different way that I didn't feel like I needed it. And funny enough, Tony Gilroy was like, he knew that he had to kind of fit it in somewhere. He didn't want to do it in a cheesy way. And he's like, he felt like he owed it to fans, basically. And he found a way to kind of make it work to where he didn't feel like it was, shoehorned in. He felt proud of how he weaved it in an honest way. So
yeah, it does not feel at all shoehorned into me. It feels like I can't imagine the show without it, because it serves such. Like, I want to talk about all this sort of the mysticism of it and how we feel about the Force and all that kind of stuff and who the Force healer is, all that stuff. But I feel like I can't imagine the show working without it. Bix's decision is lessened without that scene. The last scene of Cassian marching to his destiny, the themes of choice and personal choice and sacrifice are all held up in large part by that scene. So if that's Tony Gilroy shoehorning things in, I think he should spend the rest of his life shoehorning, because there's a pretty great vital shoehorn, in my opinion. Ken, how do you feel about the absence of the Force? Did you feel like, were you enjoying the absence of the Force?
I wasn't necessarily enjoying the absence of the Force, but it was, I think the stated purpose of the show was go to the ground level. And I think I was definitely pulled in by that. And this is a period of time where the Force isn't as present. You could even argue in some circles it'd be considered a crime or an offense that must be punished. And there was great risk of talking about this stuff. And that's why Jedi were scattered and hiding. And so it kind of made sense that this show wasn't dealing with former Jedi. It wasn't dealing with Order 66 survivors. It was dealing with the literal, at times, troops on the ground that are going to have this big fight, that are going to join or form into an alliance and fight the Galactic Civil War. So it was one of those things where I wasn't missing it, but when it showed up, if Tony Gilroy's proud, he should be proud. This is, I think, a wonderful way to do it, and kind of connects with the view of the Force I have, I'll say now, after following Finn and a lot of the other characters who aren't straight up Jedi or Jedi yet. And it isn't a matter of like, I'm a Force user. It's like you're feeling something. That feeling that Finn talks about is actually one of my favorite things about the Force now, where it's kind of connects to some of the comments George has made in the past. The whole, everyone can play basketball. Some people can just train and have natural skills and are a little bit better. Like that kind of thing really has resonated with me over the years. And therefore this scene connected with me in that regard too, where even the Force healer, as we're going to discuss, wasn't as sure. She got clarity that she had not had for a while. And I thought that was what was powerful of it in this story.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think I enjoyed, everything about Andor, and wasn't like missing the Force. I wasn't like, where is the Force? Because I feel like the Force is banned is what it is. And we weren't spending time with characters who were affected by it. Like, Kenobi is obviously going to talk about the Force, even
it's been around
the similar time period, kind of an important part of his life. I think I am very happy that it was treated as something that, well, these characters aren't thinking about it and talking about it because it has been effectively wiped from the galaxy. Like, to me, it felt like a part of, like, if Nemec had lived longer, I think he would have got around to it in his manifesto. Like, hey, and also large swaths of the galaxy have a spiritual belief that has been entirely decimated. It feels a part, to me. I think I have a little pushback of like, I like the absence of it because it feels narratively important to the story of fascism. So when people are like, I'm glad that the Force wasn't there because, magic and laser swords and witches are silly, and, soldiers having a hard time is gritty and real. Like, because for me, that's not what it is. It's grounded in gritty because here's yet another way these people are forced to suffer, is that belief is taken from them. A power in the galaxy that is tied to intuition and connection and empathy is being, if you're somebody who happens to believe in that, you're afraid to speak about it. And it has opened up a vacuum for charlatans. One of my favorite things about that Force healer scene is that the very real conversation about, there are charlatans going around basically saying, hey, I'm a Force healer, and it's just like a total snake oil scam. And that Marva ran into one of those and is now like, meh, everything the Empire says about the Force is true. Like, I don't think Marva's literally saying that, because I'm not a big fan of the Empire. But I love its absence as a denial of not just the Jedi, but everything the Force provides. Like when Kenobi describes it as turning on a light when you're scared. And what does the Force healer talk about? It's healing. It's empathy. It's connection. It's meaningful to me that we don't see the Force until we're on Yavin, which is so coded in this show as a place of community and a better way forward, surrounded by nature. And it isn't, to me, about gritty soldiers don't need no laser swords. It's about all the beautiful things that the Force means that's been taken from these people. And in these scenes are these like kind of tentative steps that can we have those things again? Empathy, intuition, connection, healing. Yeah, so that was meaningful to me. Jennifer, for you, you said you didn't even need the scene to be as focused or long as it was. What was important to you about the Force coming into the story? Why did you like the way that it did?
I liked that it created tension. It created much more danger for all the characters because I'm like, there's just something always in the back of my mind when you have any sort of Jedi character that okay, at least there's someone that can come and save the day. There's someone
Mm.
who has supernatural powers like a superhero that's going to come and save the people. But the reality is, as we are seeing today, no one's going to save us. No righteous or magical person is going to come and come with their laser sword and save the day. Collectively, we have to save ourselves. And that's really what, for me, I loved about the theme of Andor. It is many different types of people in all different walks of life coming together to save the galaxy, whether it's small moments or big life-threatening moments. And so the absence of the Force, I felt, was really, really important for me as a viewer. So I'm like, well, watching they're scared for our characters and for our characters as well, because basically there's no hope. It's like the Force feels like it's dormant, right? And it feels distant and far away, and the world, the galaxy seems dark. So I think that's a really important detail.
Yeah, I love your point about, and it's such an important distinction between a Jedi and the Force exists, and this Force healer has a relationship with it that even she doesn't understand. Like, she's not going around with pamphlets going, "I can heal everyone." She's like, "I'm supposed to be cooking, but let me touch you and try." Meh. Like, and I love how honest she is about like, he's got a destiny. He's a messenger. Maybe his destiny is to be with you, Bix. I don't know. It's just, so that's so different than like even in Rogue One of like, go contact your friend the Jedi because we need a person with abilities. It's much more about the presence of the Force. And I love what you're saying about how important it is that that this is a story of collective action. Cassian is sort of in this scene endowed with sort of special purpose that maybe does, for some viewers, border on the one to come to save us. I mean, I think it's presented as you have a part in this grand scheme and it's important you're in the right place at the right time. It isn't like, Cassian, you are the one, but there is a little bit of chosen oneness about this. You have a destiny. You have to be in the right place at the right time. Are you really in charge of your own choices, or are you destined to need to make this specific choice? How was that balance for you, Jennifer? You're in terms of your great point about this is not a story about one superhero who comes and saves us. Did it balance that while
I didn't
giving
even,
Cassian this special
yeah.
purpose?
I feel like we're zeroing in on one character's journey, but you could certainly apply that to so many, to Mon Mothma, to Luthen, to Clea, right? And I think about like if I were to compare it to our world and some of the great heroes that we've had, was it because it was their chosen destiny? Some people might believe that, especially if you're a religious person, But my thing is having coming from a religious background, for me, what are the choices that I am making to lead me to that destiny? If I just, this is how I grew up is, okay, you have a God-given gift, right? You have a God-given thing and God wants this for you. Well, but okay, so I'm just going to sit there and wait. I mean, and that's what can happen. And for many years, I did wait and I took no action. And guess what happened? Nothing. You may have a talent. Nothing's going to happen. No blessings are going to happen unless you take action. And so, yes, maybe Cassian is especially gifted and chosen by the Force, but he's got to take action to make his destiny a reality. That's all that it is for me.
Yeah. No, and I agree very much. I feel strongly about that a lot of people, especially on sort of a casual viewing of Star Wars, think it's all just about wishy-washy destiny, because that's what mostly the villains say of you
Mhm.
have a destiny, you don't have a choice, this is what's going to happen.
Mhm.
And then when you really look at the nuts and bolts of the stories, it's like there's a thing in your life that you have to face. The more I think about the original trilogy, and the more time, and the older I get, like Luke's great destiny is deal with the baggage that you inherited from your parents that you can't escape without dealing with. You can't move forward as a person until you deal with your crappy dad. And I feel like it's the similar kind of epic destiny for Cassian of like, you've gone back and forth from being very committed to this rebellion to tempted to leave it. And you need to make a choice, because if you stay with this rebellion, you can really help people. And you want to make that choice, which to your point, Jennifer, is I think Star Wars really does has a story of if the divine is present, it's asking you to make a choice, not sit around and wait for some other power to tap you on the shoulder and say, now's the time.
Right.
Yeah. Ken?
Yeah.
Why is it important for you that the Force came into the story the way it did? Or is it not important?
No, I thought it was very important. I especially, just rewatching the scene, I think that key word is clarity that she uses, when she thanks him for the clarity. And I love that little line she has about, that they'll come no matter what. And sometimes it works, She's not a scammer. She's just like, I'm going through the motions because it's a dark time. The lights are not on. But this is big for me. I think I love that you pointed out that a lot of people talk about destiny in Star Wars. A lot of talks of prophecies and chosen ones. But some of the heavier uses are the villains. And it's, we did that ForceCenter scene by scene a long time ago of Luke turning himself into Vader in Return of the Jedi. And there's a lot of that energy from Vader, right? There's nothing too late for me, my son. I can't do anything. It's my destiny. And Palpatine will tell you that. It's your destiny. You're trapped. There's no choice. And this whole episode, it's the messenger, titled The Messenger, or Messenger. And, I focus on that word too, where I think it was important to hear that she wasn't saying, we need a hero. We need a messenger. That could mean anything. We know what it ends up meaning because of the story, but that's also for the rebellion too. Jen, I love your point of everyone's gathering. This Rebel Alliance for 19 years has been gathering steam, floundering, tripping up. There's been infighting. There's the idiot rebels. There's Saw Gerrera going, you can't find me. You don't know where I am. Like, there's all this stuff going on. But they are gathering, and they are going to be right where they need to be. And it's, no small thing in my mind that Jan Dodonna is the first to say it on screen, that the Masasi temple is steeped in some sort of religious background. It doesn't factor so much into Andor, but it's just kind of hanging around the rebellion here. It doesn't mean that the Force favors the rebellion, or to get into those real world conversations. Does God favor the New York Yankees? Maybe in my mind he does, but not in others. I don't know. But it was an important scene for me, and it stood out on first viewing. It tripped me up a little bit of like, whoa, because the series hadn't dealt with it. But in a way, and I don't know how intentional, but in a way, I think the series was dealing with the Force the entire time, because it is about the choices and the going toward the light that we all want to push for. And I think that's what was going on in the series. So it was great to hear that from Cassian. Great to hear it from Bix's point of view. Or just her questions of it, like, what did you see? She kind of, in a way, to me, wants that destiny maybe answer. And I'm not saying that to talk down on her in any way, but just like, what did you see? You scared him. I want to know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I want to talk about Bix a little bit more, but I want to ask Jennifer about the clarity line. So when the Force Healer thanks him for the clarity, how do you what does that make you feel? It's like, for me, it's such an emotional moment where she feels like not only did she see this, but almost like emotionally she felt a kind of level of clarity that she hasn't got to feel through Cassian's clarity. And to me, it's just like a very beautiful moment. But how did you interpret it? What does it mean for you, the idea of clarity?
I think she's her faith is being restored in what she has perhaps felt before, and she's obviously been using it for, she wants to help people, and sometimes she feels it, sometimes she doesn't. But here she felt it very strongly, and it's like, okay, her faith is reignited to continue doing what she's doing. That's kind of how I saw it.
Yeah, I really like it. It is exactly what you're saying. Clarity that, yes, I am Force sensitive to some level, and this is all real, and it feels, wonderful and beautiful. But also, I really love what you're saying, Ken, of like, even though all these rebels are there and gathered, and so many of them are very committed, there still isn't clarity of purpose. And I think Cassian is tempted to leave the rebellion because he wants a normal life. He wants to be with Bix, as he tries to, decide at the end of this arc. But I think he has perfect clarity about, why am I in the fight? What is this rebellion for? How do I want to fight it? I think the fact that he has been sort of preaching the rebellion as something spiritual, almost like that great line to the woman on Sinar of, it's coming home. I feel like it's about, she is sensing that sort of clarity. Like, everybody at Touch is kind of conflicted and in pain, and it's not like you aren't conflicted and in pain, Cassian, but you have such clarity and devotion about the nature of the rebellion and the need for the rebellion. And I think that's kind of beautiful too.
Yeah, and I think and Bix having those realizations, as we can talk about it, but yeah, having that and which is not to suggest that her and a baby is in the way and shouldn't be valued. I think that's a valuable conversation to have around some of the choices they made in that. But I just think in that moment, it's, she connects with what the healer's saying about Cassian.
Yeah, absolutely. I would love to talk a little bit about that follow-up scene where, Cassian is freaked out. And I think Bix suggests some amount of, whatever term you want to use, force awareness, force vibes, that she's been ashamed to talk about. And this is something that we didn't really get a chance to talk about much when we were talking about this episode. Bix says about the fact that it's not a scam. The Force Healer walked right over to you. She says, but it happened and I could sense it, and I'm not afraid to say that. I've felt it before, Cass. She called you a messenger. I've had dreams like that. So Bix saying, I could sense it, and I'm not afraid to say it, to me is very much about this story of, we haven't heard about the Force in Andor because everybody's under fascism. And even somebody like Bix, who would normally have maybe, if she had grown up 60 years ago, talked to somebody about these dreams that she had or these feelings that she had. And I'm not saying, she was Force sensitive and the Jedi would have adopted her or whatever, but more like just lots of people in the galaxy have these moments of intuition, these moments of feelings, and they used to have a name for that, and they used to be able to discuss that. And now here's a character who says, I kind of have dreams sometimes. I kind of have vibes. I kind of sense something more. And normally I'd be, and I'm embarrassed to talk about it, but I'm not afraid to say that now. Ken, what do you make of those specific words from Bix that suggest, again, I'm not saying like, she's going to be a Jedi. Does her child grow up to be in Luke's school? Not saying anything about Jedi. I'm talking about normal people having vibes and having a word for it.
I love it, and I love the idea that this has come up in their hut before. That there's been maybe even some arguments, and for me, from the casting point of view, sometimes if you get those words in your head and you kind of know, but you want to run away or don't want to run straight at it, someone having some sort of thoughts on that or feeling something that you can't fully understand might be a point of contention. So I like that there's probably been some nights that we haven't seen when these ear jumps where she's like, I had a dream, I want to tell you about it. Or, there's even, I gather when he has that kind of like, you could have asked me, like they know that this Force Healer's been, slinging the Force in the cafeteria there. They know. And there's maybe, I don't know if this is the first time that Bix has gone there or thought about going there. I don't know. I think it ties into what I said up top is what I love about the Force. It's understandable that we all think of the Jedi and the Sith and the Order and the training and the braids and the lightsabers and the robes. Of course, that's there, and it's a big part of Star Wars, and that's about the Jedi Order. But the fact that the fact that Yoda talks about it, it's everywhere. It binds all of us. It is there. And in this world, this isn't a comment on our world. Jen and I will know from the mean streets of Costa Mesa, Calvary Chapel, Costa Mesa. We know. We all have God-given gifts. We do. But this is not a comment on that. But in the Star Wars world, the Force is something pretty powerful, pretty felt galactically, felt across the galaxy there. And you might have some opinion on it, as much as it is quiet in this 19 years. So I like that it would be on the ground along with these troops in some ways.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I loved the Force as a metaphor for many things, but one of them just being intuition, just calming your mind and listening to your gut, whether that's about making a life decision. Sometimes when you tell a friend the decision that you need to make, and then you just realize as you're talking in your gut that there's an answer for you, and how hard it is to kind of access that level of intuition that we have in the real world, in my opinion. When we're constantly angry, when we're constantly stressed, and this idea that life is a little calmer on Yavin, a little bit more connected to nature, and Bix would start having these dreams, but not really let them in. And then I think she just goes to this Force healer to be like, hey, your shoulder isn't healing, and you can get in line, and maybe she'll touch you. And it's kind of blown away by the fact that it's something more than that validates these dreams and intuition that she's been having. And it's like these floodgates open for her, is the way I take it. Jennifer, how do you feel about what Bix is saying, and that she's talking about feelings and dreams?
I related to it the most. To me, that was the most realistic portrayal of what, if you are a spiritual person, which I believe I am a spiritual person, even though I don't go to church per se. It's like you sometimes get these feelings. What are those feelings? Scientists try to describe what it might be, right? When you meet a person and you get a vibe, right? Or you're in a situation and you get a vibe. What is that? Well, in Star Wars, it's the Force. In our world, I don't know. And I also liked that she talked about her dreams, because I too have dreams. What does that mean? It's not that I'm psychic. I think that there's you're talking about intuition, things that are going on within our day, and our brain is working through it and is getting through the truth. I'm not going to get into some of the crazy things that have happened. But to me, I loved it. I loved it because it's I'm talking about this now and I sound cuckoo, right? And I'm sure that that's how Bix probably, why she's so hesitantly, she's sharing this. And I'm sure in the galaxy, nobody talks like that, right? Just like in our world, it's kind of okay. So anyways, I really liked it. It felt the most truthful.
It ties to me with Yoda telling Luke that you have to unlearn what you have learned. Even with creative ideas, right? We are collecting all this information as we go about the world, and all these feelings and observations, and the slight slant in someone's mouth when we're talking to them tells us something. But then we're not encouraged to collate that information in an intuitive way. We're encouraged to go, what piece of information is valuable for what I'm trying to do right now, and put it in the box where it's supposed to go. And in terms of creativity, you get all these ideas from all of these different places and all this information you gather. But then if you're going to be rigid about it, a script should be the 3-act structure, and which idea is valuable for blah, 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 blah. And if you let go of some of that rigidity and unlearn what you have learned, I think you can sort of access more of the information that we've been collecting. And I feel like partially that's what's going on with Bix, is hey, I'm letting myself unlearn what I have learned. I've been collecting this, almost subconscious information, and normally it's not applicable to the mission or the choices or rations, but I'm going to let it out and actually feel it and think about it and go, that information's valuable.
Yeah.
Ken?
Yeah, I have a lot of thoughts this section of it here, and to push it outside of Star Wars, but also to keep it within. I was in a very combative Star Wars conversation at a bar recently, and I was trying not to get involved in it. And one of the reasons I almost jumped in when they started talking crap about Phantom Menace. That's my line. But they talked about how, you should watch Andor because it doesn't have any of that silly Star Warsy Force stuff and everything. And while I get that on the surface, I do. I call bull roar on that because of what we're talking about. The Force is everywhere. It's at every decision. To spill it out into real world conversations, what you're talking about, Jen, those feelings that I'd love to have science give me every answer on, but they can't, right? And I'd love a little more attempt to see what it actually means, like when you get those feelings, where the morality comes from. And I don't think it's tied to one religion or anything, but we all have those feelings, those moments. And even what you're talking about, Joseph, with the creativity, or with a lot of stuff going on in my life, I go pace in my backyard and just kind of like, what am I feeling? What is the word? What is the emotions coming up? And the Force is that. We see it in this big way. We see it in the dark side, the light side, all those things, but it filters on down to the small levels. There is a great conversation out there that's related very much to real world things we don't need to go full into, but there's a former from Minnesota representing, Pat Conkey, former pastor. It's a great YouTube channel. He talks with the pastor Dave Johnson. I think I sent you this clip once, Jen, of talking about the Israelites, the Israel citizens there under Rome rule, choosing Barabbas to be released over Jesus, and how that is this idea of choosing, when you choose the way of Barabbas over choosing the way of Jesus, it's not on some big level. It's actually on sometimes a small level. And the pastor gives an example. When I get mad and I talk over my wife, that is choosing the way of Barabbas. When Joseph, you've given a great example before. When I send that angry email that I shouldn't do, I love when you bring that up. That is choosing the way of Barabbas over the way of Christ. And that's on the small molecular level. And that's what I think this is about. This is a big thing for Cassian, but on a small molecular level, that those decisions to not turn away from the oppression in the galaxy, not turn away from the fight, or to, Saul, I would say, is choosing the way of Barabbas when he's not listening to those around him, even though he believed he has clarity of purpose. And sorry to spit it all out there, but this is the kind of stuff I deal with a lot in my own life right now, where like, what do I do today? And what are those feelings, and how can I connect to it? And how can I believe it? And a lot of that is choice. A lot of that is choice in action.
Yeah.
And you know what's interesting now that I'm thinking about it? That those scenes are the most, for me personally, the most Mexican scenes. And it really is a cultural thing within the Latin community of believing in spirits and believing that a curandera, like a witch doctor, can maybe help you and heal these wounds that you have, or can help you in your marriage or whatever it is. And it's very easy. It's probably why there's a lot of Latino Star Wars fans. It's easy for us to believe in this mysticism of the Force because it's very much connected to what we believe oftentimes or told within our culture. But I really see the Bix and the Andor dynamic is really funny because it feels very much like me arguing with my mom sometimes, where she's like, don't you see, this is this and this is connected to that, and I'm like, oh my gosh, like that person's just giving you a line. Like it's almost easier to not want to believe. It's easier for an Andor to not believe he has a destiny, to not believe that he, that
I'm just lucky. He says it. I'm just lucky.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Because otherwise it's almost scarier. It's more nebulous, and it requires a tremendous amount of faith. Right. Yeah. But we see him come around. I don't know if it's necessarily that he has a destiny per se, but that he has to, he keeps coming back.
He needs to be here.
Why does he keep coming back? Right.
Yeah. For me, I think, also, Yoda says, through the Force, you'll see things, friends long gone, but also the future. And to me, it's some of it is just sort of like, there's all these tendrils of possibility. And what Bix and the Force Healer are sensing is like, if you stay with the rebellion, you'll be at this pivotal moment where you can choose to support Jin. You can choose to support the idea of going to Scarif. And if somebody else tries to go to Scarif, they might not have all of the skills that you've built up. And just like, less a destiny and more like, well, you're already on this path, dude. Like, you're gonna be at that intersection. There are going to be 7 people at the intersection. Somebody needs to turn left. You have all the skills and knowledge to turn left. Are you going to be at that intersection or not? It is an interesting way for me to think about it.
Cassian, like you're right, Jenny. It's not just simply destiny. In Rogue One, he makes several choices, right? He makes several choices along the way. Put the sniper rifle down. Stand with Jid. Like there's always a choice that he's making. It's not just a track that rolls uncontrollably down the hill.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and in terms of there's so much stuff about all that he's been gathering. And I wanted to take a look at that through the eyes of one of the grittier characters, grounded, real Luthen. I'm really fascinated. At the end of this arc, Luthen and Andor kind of have that headbutt about Luthen sort of ideas about honestly almost like predestination of like the second you and I started on this path, it means that it's going to end with the Empire killing us. It's just true. Cassian's really in this place where he wants to make his own choices. I think it's one of the reasons that he's scared of the prophecy, or that not the prophecy, but what feels like to him a prophecy, because he wants to make his own choices. And Luthen's pushing on him that you made one choice and eventually the Empire is going to kill you and that's it. And Cassian says back forcefully, I make my own decisions. And Luthen kind of takes a beat and says, is that what you've been doing? Sometimes I wonder. You appeared when I needed you. Aldani, Narkina, Ferric, Sinar, Mineral, Gorman. And here we are. Now, again, I'm not saying Luthen's a secret Jedi or he's super Force sensitive, but in the way we've been talking about the Force as a metaphor for intuition, for listening to these little voices, here's a man who has a Sky Kyber necklace, and if he's telling Cassian the truth, it's one of the most important things in the world to him. Here's a spiritual, empathetic man who started on this journey because he couldn't endure the horrors of war and injustice. He's kind of in this moment to me saying, like, you've been gathering all these skills, you've been to all these places, you've built these relationships, these talents, but also me, Luthen, a gritty, no BS guy with 800 different agents, or who knows how many agents you have. We really don't know if it's 15 or 80 that he's managing. But like, Cassian, you seem to be there at all the most important moments. You appeared when I needed you. To me, I think he is sort of like in his own way playing with this idea of like reinforcing without knowing about it what the Force healer and what Vic said of like, you're on a path. And sometimes I wonder if somebody else is driving. Ken, what do you make of what Luthen is getting at, and why Luthen is saying these things to Cassian? Because it's a very different Luthen. It isn't just barking orders or emotional manipulation. It's taking a step back and going, you're always there when I need you. You've been to all these places, and it makes me wonder.
Like Clay, when he shows up to rescue her, it would be you. It would be you. You're always here. Yeah, no, I think it speaks to a side of Luthen that is there that we don't get to dive into. You're right. The Kyber character. Let's not forget his spaceship, the Fondor, which had lightsaber blades on it. Clearly, an Order 66 survivor, as we all thought at the time. No, not us. But his make it stop decision that we do end up seeing is what I'm talking about too. It is this moral decision that goes beyond any Jedi Order. And holy hell, I would love to see Luthen before the Jedi Order, probably saying, I believe in you, I believe in what you stand for, I believe in the choices that you continue to try to make, but you're not making the right ones now. You're always here. You're always at the fight. I'm frustrated with what you're doing. I would love, he and Qui-Gon would probably have great conversations, I think. But in terms of the moment with Cassian, yeah, I think there's absolutely some wonder. If Luthen's been disconnected from all that in a little bit, it's been years. Maybe he's so lost in the fight. Maybe that's why he feels some people are pieces and they're interchangeable, or they need to be separated and they must only trust him, as the conversation with Mothma. Maybe he himself is a little like wowed by what this low level criminal from Ferrix that he recruited, right? This low, you're a thief. But you have become so much more in a way that I can't explain. I love that side of Luthen that we're maybe not seeing.
Mm-hmm. Jen, what did you make of Luthen's reaction to Cassian in this moment?
I'd like to go back and rewatch it because I interpreted it completely differently, and
Mhm.
I saw him as saying like you are you are more committed to this than you realize
Mhm.
because
I
you
think so
have
too.
showed up
Mhm.
whenever I've needed you because you are so invested. So don't you know what I mean? Like it's kind of
Mhm.
like you don't even realize it. That's kind of how I interpreted it. But I like the idea that he would be open to like, shock and awe of just like, wow, this is kind of weird that you're showing up
Mhm.
every time at these big events, right? We've had maybe perhaps those things in our lives where you run into someone, you're like, wow, okay, this is different. And not that you're suddenly going to become a force healer or all into all that, but it's just like, huh, that's funny.
Mhm.
Anyways, right, like it could just be that type of a moment for him. I don't know. But I
I
did interpret it more,
no,
I guess, like
I think
literally.
I think what you're talking about is absolutely there and all part of that package because we also got Cassian retiring with Clea, right? All the like I'm out of here and everything, and, and
Right.
and who doesn't have that kind of sometimes in our lives, I don't want to be here anymore, but you're good at it. You're here. You keep showing up. You say you're not into it, but you show up every Monday. like
Yeah.
I think
Your
that could be part of
actions.
it. You know.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with you, Jennifer, that a big part of what he's saying is like you keep wanting to leave this fight. You're really dragging your feet about Aldani. Um,
Mm-hmm.
you were trying to run away. That's how you ended up on Narkina, where you helped save people, at least Melshi, and who
Right.
knows who else. Um, Sinar it seems like it was an important mission. Mineral,
Yeah.
he saved people. To me, it feels like Luthen is responding to Cassian's fierce "I make my own decisions," and Luthen says, "Is that what you've been doing? Sometimes I wonder." And that to me feels like you have had many moments where you've wanted to walk away, but there's something that won't let you. It almost feels to me like Luthen is sort of pressing on this button of is it about choice or is it about destiny? Is it about you can't walk away because every time you try, something makes you choose differently. Yeah. So, and I'm not saying like he is tapped into the force, but the sometimes I wonder. Just it feels to me like he is somewhere on the path that Bix was, where Bix like would have a dream and be like, sometimes I wonder. He always seems to be where he needs to be when he's needed. Um, and it just feels to me like a weird moment of Luthen letting himself be almost introspective. Well, also still making, an important point to Cassian of like you keep saying you want to be done and you keep still being here. And are you making that choice or is something pushing you along?
Mm-hmm.
I
And we're
could
all
also see it like, oh, sorry, Ken, go
no,
ahead.
we're both gonna hang for it. So
Yeah.
Right. I can also see it just like a calling, right? Like somebody who chooses to be a doctor in the ER, and it's like if they're out in the world and something happens, like they're just like they're called to serve people, they're called to help people. I could kind of see him feeling like that. I guess
Hmm.
it's hard for me to envision Luthen believing in anything outside of like just this like groundedness, but
mm-hmm.
but that's the fascinating thing with this character is they very well could, and we still only know a sliver of who this character is, which could be so fascinating to explore in books, comics, whatever it is,
Hmm.
just because I feel like he's lived so many lives and we've just gotten a tiny little bit of
Yeah.
who this guy is.
I really agree, and I think that's why I really like this moment of him. Just he's stressed. He's afraid. He does. Clea's freaking out because she doesn't know. They're both used to controlling everything, and they're losing control. And he's had this stressful conversation with Mothma. It's like I shouldn't have told her about her skin, and so he's already in a little bit of a like not on top of everything the way Luthen wants to be. The chess pieces are making decisions of their own. And he's like, so he's already in a little bit of this vulnerable place. And I think to me, his, speech to Lonnie, I've made my mind a sunless space. Everything about his speech is, in order to commit myself to this battle, I rejected everything good. And it's such a choice. And it feels like in real life when you're like, I need to do this really hard thing, and I can't even let myself enjoy a meal. I can't even let myself enjoy a conversation. I'm going to deny everything and just focus on this brutal task in front of me and deny myself. And to me, it goes along with, you know, Bix's sort of denial of her own dreams, of her own feelings. That this is an era where characters don't let themselves indulge these feelings, and Luthen in particular. I bet Luthen has really strong opinions about how the Jedi failed everybody. Like, he's old enough of like, yeah, that I would probably lived on Coruscant, maybe not, but definitely like, hey, I was around, functioning adult when the Jedi were running around, and there were all sorts of holovids praising Anakin Skywalker as a hero of the rebellion or of the Clone Wars. You know, like I bet he hates the Jedi because they were supposed to do a job and they failed, and he's probably just like, F all that. And yet he's got a kyber crystal. He's got a bunch of Jedi Force stuff, ancient Force stuff. He's got a Jedi Temple guard mask in his collection. That man knows his stuff. And so I feel like, and this is just total headcanon for me, but it's really interesting headcanon for him to go, there was a time I believed in all of that. And the people who were supposed to hold it up and supposed to use it to defend us failed miserably. F the Jedi, F the Force. But I get vibes sometimes and I deny them because I've made my mind a vibeless place.
I'd like a alternate angle on the Dex and Obi-Wan scene where a younger Luthen's in the corner going, look at that guy having Jawa juice, just like it's a normal day. Giving himself cake at a diner. No.
Get to work. So one of the other elements of the Force being present in Andor is Bail saying, "May the Force be with you." You know, this is canonical of rebel leadership, but we have Dodonna saying, "May the Force be with you" in the first Star Wars film. Jennifer, what does it mean to you that at least a portion of the rebellion leadership believe in the Force? And not just, I'm going to go privately to my hut and think about it, but say it as the go get 'em team closing of their speeches.
There is sometimes where I'll be talking with someone and they're about to go do something really challenging where I'm like, I don't know how this is going to work out. Good luck is not enough. I have to, like, there's like a higher power. Like, if the stars align, as some might say, it will work out for you. And I find myself unironically, not even Star Wars fansy, saying, may the Force be with you. It gives me comfort. And it's like, you know, if you're religious, God be with you, right? Or I'm praying for you, whatever that is. Right? Like, it's like I have to call on that because I want to believe it's going to be okay. It's like, it's comforting. It's believing that the greater good will prevail. And I feel like in that moment with Bail, that's just kind of, it's like tapping into that higher power of like, we are fighting the good fight. This is all not for naught. And our good deeds are going to be rewarded, or whatever you want to say, or help the people that we're trying to help. Yeah, that's how I saw it.
Yeah. I mean, I think Bail and Dodonna are older, and they lived in a time where, like, not only were like they were the Jedi, they probably had a personal choice of, do you believe in the Force? Does it help you make those little decisions that add up that you're talking about, Ken? And I think for me, it feels, you know, growing up with A New Hope is just like, oh yeah, the Force is real, and you know the bad guys don't believe in it. Darth Vader choked that guy for talking about it, and made fun of it, but the rebels believe it's real because the Force is good. Like, it felt like a nice, straightforward thing, and I think it is. But also in the context of Yavin, of like, look at what we've built, look at how we're doing the rebellion. It's about community. We have we've got drums because music's important. In it saying may the Force be with you and making it a part of this army, this rebel army, feels like another push their personal beliefs, but also push back on fascism. Like with what's going on in Los Angeles right now, what we're being told to believe by the want to be fascist authoritarian government is that everybody in LA is violent criminals. And then you look at the protests and like people are dancing, people are sharing food, people are sharing community. And for me, again, like the Force isn't just this big spiritual thing. It's intuition, it's community, it's connection, it's love. And it almost feels like part of what we're doing is they're painting a picture of reality where connection, community, empathy, music, great bacon wrapped street hot dogs, all that stuff isn't real.
Yeah.
And Andor made me feel like a part of the rebellion is this pushback going, no, all those things are that the fascists don't want you to believe is real. They are, and they matter. Ken, how do you feel about the rebel leadership in their spirituality?
Yeah, I love it, and you're right. We going back to how we first saw it in our generation, or just anyone growing up with Star Wars. But if you grew up with that New Hope Empire Jedi swing through the story, it was just this thing, like you said. The good guys said, "May the Force be with you," and the bad guys did not. And I actually don't think that's. I'm not moved off of that even after all these years, because it's I try to be very careful extrapolating this to the real world, because it might suddenly sound like I'm campaigning for the Crusades or something like that. Not. I think the Force is not a stand-in for that. Just imagine if all the religious leaders in our time stood for what is right, but not what is right for them. And I think that is what the Force kind of represents in the Star Wars story, which is still a myth. At the end of the day, even with gritty bricks and screws and S words, dirty words, it's still about what is right for everyone and standing for that. And I think that is present all the way through. You're right, the connection. That's what Clea's just rewatching the scene today. I think it moves me more now than even when the episode first aired. But Clea waking, injuries and all. And the sun on her face, seeing this sunrise. And it's not the sunrise that maybe comes post-fall of the Empire, but it is a sunrise because she wanted to stay in that safe house. She might have gone out. She might have fought to her death. She is rescued by those sent to save her, sent to stand for what is right. And I think that all kind of slides into Bail saying, "May the Force be with you," to Donna saying it, to Leia saying it. Does Riken say it? He thinks it. Akbar says it. Radis says it. I think that's important, and it is not about a sect or an order. They're not talking about the Jedi Order. They're talking about this concept, this thing, this connection, this empathy, this compassion for standing for what is right in the galaxy. So it is natural to me. And I thought it was very important, especially as we said last week, and have said all this thing. I think sometimes Bail is played wonderfully and comes off exasperated, which I understand. But he's a little prickly at times, maybe with good reason. But for him to have that, I'm going to go. Let's go down swinging. If I'm going to die, and we know he's days away from dying. And then it ending with a very powerful "May the Force be with you." Loved the use of it. It was very important. And not shoot in. You should be proud, Tony.
Way to not shoot in. I wanted to go back to one other kind of important part of the Force Healer scene in specific, and how it relates to Cassian, talking about everything he's been gathering. Ken, hearing you talk about how much in the real world the choices that matter, are the big ones, but also like we're building our life, we're building our relationships, we're building our impact on the world by every little decision, and I do think it ripples out of, I send that angry email, I make that person's day worse. And then do they maybe make their spouse's day worse, and not in huge, step on a butterfly wings, the whole world changes and timelines diverge if I don't send that angry email, but I'm contributing to something. When the Force Healer talks about everything that Cassian's been gathering, there's the real practical, like his skills, his relationships. But I wonder how much it's also just it is about like these decisions that you feel like have been small are all adding up to something really important. Ken, how do you feel about what what the force healer means, what Bix means, what Luthen means,
Mhm.
when everybody reinforces, hey, Cassian, you've been all these places, you've done all these things, you've met all these people, you've made all these choices, and they're not isolated. They're all connected.
It's something that's very important to me in my own life, even as I just try to make sense of it, where I am in my personal life, my career, and everything. This is very true. There's a job I'm hopefully up for soon. I'm still waiting for it. Everything, and I have the resume for it, and it's a person I know. And a conversation with her, the only reason I was on the phone call with her to possibly get this job, she said, was, well, it was how you treated me back at Collider. It was 10 years ago when you did this thing and you helped me or you helped others. And I talked to people. You had a good reputation. I wasn't consciously aware of any of the decisions I was making back then. I was just doing what I felt was the right thing to do. And I'm far from perfect there. But it was a fascinating reminder of, here I am trying in this moment to be like, I need this, and here's this, and here's that, and I was only there because of who I am, but who I was 10 years ago. And you gather as you go, and all the losses and the failures that put you there are part of that as well. Cassian is driven by the biggest hole in his soul is the loss of his sister. But I think it's so correct that you never see her again. She is not saved by him. We don't know what happened to her. We've got to assume it perhaps wasn't good. And so he's driven by that. And that's a pain that moves him forward. That is a pain that he is gathering the energy from to constantly be in this position to help others, constantly be into this position of saying you're returning to you, you're becoming you. And I think that's what everyone else is reacting to as well. And we all have it in our own lives, right? The Force Healer probably has that now, or, Wilman has that now. We all have our view on that. I'm just sharing my personal story and hopefully it connects with Cassian's for anyone out there. But, I think that's what I take from it. That's why you're here.
Yeah. Yeah. Jennifer, how do you feel about what it means that what Cassian has been gathering?
It's such an interesting choice of words. Gathering. What does that mean? I remember when I was watching it for the first time, I was like, huh, that's a funny way to put it.
Yeah, like he's been collecting things.
like he's
all your plants that you've been gathering in your little hut there and watering.
Right. Like it just makes me think of he has a little basket and he's going around gathering things.
He's playing Animal Crossing, Jen. He's getting those bells.
Catching butterflies to give to Blathers. Okay. So, but yeah, it's also a much more it's an honorable word. It's a work, an action kind of thing, right? There's no you could think of some of the missions that he's been on that have been incredibly violent. I would not call that gathering. I wouldn't, right? It's kind of away from that violence. And it's much more like he's on this path, he's harvesting. He's gathering the things that he needs to do to plant his crops. And now, yeah. So I feel like it's just kind of like she's saying, you're basically ready. You're ready, dude. You're on this. This is you've been doing this. You've been going along the way. You have everything now to go on to fight the big boss in the video.
Yeah, I mean, I like looking at it in Rogue One and almost breaking down what does Cassian have in his basket that makes a difference in Rogue One? And it is everything from the very practical to, hey, K2SO is real valuable in getting them into Scarif, right? It's literally that life history of I'm a thief and I thought to grab this droid and I built this relationship to him. To how many moments in Rogue One are essential because Cassian understands Jyn. He gets mad at her in the film, but he understands somebody who would choose to not look up at the flag and just say, it's not my fault. It's not my fight. He knows what it is to be motivated by the loss of a loved one. He knows what it is to want to honor a fallen parent and do the right thing that they asked you to do. That's literally what happened to him with Marva. So I kind of think of the gathering as sort of it's everything from the mundane practical stuff, like you stole a droid, to on a deep emotional level, you will understand this other person who's a part of this path.
Yeah. Yeah.
which I think is pretty cool.
Mm.
I have a sort of fun, jokey question that I want to wrap up with. But before we get to that, Jen, any other big thoughts on the Force healer, the relationship to Force and Andor? Any other stuff you wanted to discuss?
No, it is interesting to think about how the Force is present in Andor. It's always in Star Wars. It has to be. That's why I love Star Wars, is that kind of the mysticism that, it's just a little bit more prominent in other stories, but it still has been felt in Andor for me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it's both its absence and its return are profound, and I think tied to the timeline. And yeah, you can have a story with no Jedi, no lightsabers. You can even not have a Jedi Temple Guard mask in a cool antique shop. And if the story is set in this galaxy, it's present, it's real. The characters might not talk about it, but it's there. Ken?
Yeah, the Force is more prominent in other stories because the Force is more prominent in other people's lives in this galaxy, right? That's again, there's a lot of things that I understand with the Finn storyline that people would want, and things I hope we would still get to, and I'm there for those conversations. But I love this character, and I love the stuff in Rise of Skywalker. I felt something. I wasn't part of a church. I didn't have robes. I didn't know I could be part. I just felt something in a village with a blaster at a villager that didn't feel right to me. And that, to me, is what the Force truly is in Star Wars. Understandably, over the years, no matter your generation, the Force seems only connected to the Jedi. The Force seems only connected in a good way to one team and all those kind of things. And it's just, I get it. It's a natural story. It's the marketing of it. It's whatever you want to say. But when you really look at it, when you really go to what Yoda says to Luke at Empire, when you really talk about the Force as Obi-Wan knows it and explains it to Luke in A New Hope, it is about these things. And I think it was a right decision to not have it prominent in the story because it wasn't prominent in these lives and wasn't prominent in these times. You couldn't be speaking openly about that. And you might just not believe anyways. If you're, 5 at the fall of the Republic and here at the end of the Andor, you're in your early 20s or whatever, like, yeah, you didn't grow up with it. But it's still there. It's still present. And I love that the series found the right way to connect to it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I that's why I think the absence of it is profound, because to me, my interpretation is there are tiny little hints that it's been denied by people individually, like Bix, maybe like Luthen. And I think all of it has this great shadow where everybody is even the Imperials, their life is brutal and hard, and everybody is kind of, the number one thing on a lot of people's minds is Palpatine, either as the wound at the center of the galaxy, as Marva describes him, or as the top of this devastating, horrific food chain that all the Imperials are well aware he's the top in the chain of people rudely putting their fingers on other people's heads. He's the top finger, right? And everybody's lives kind of revolving around this guy. And the truth of it is, he's a space wizard. He's an evil space wizard who is, busy doing weird magic with cauldrons. Like that is the truth at the top of all this. And it is not just a truth that is being denied from the perspective of the light side of the Force and the connection and the sort of the fascism, but it's also the Emperor's like, I'm not going to tell you the truth. I'm going to tell you the Force is BS. It's not real. And then I'm going to close the door and do it.
Yeah.
Is this extra level of absence and hypocrisy
That's
of like,
so true. Sorry.
Yeah.
I've never thought of it in those simple terms. It's like, it's all fake. Anyways, bring in my dignitaries.
Don't look at my cauldron.
Well, also because that would make sense. It's like, he knows it's true. He goddamn knows it's true, so he wants to be the only one who has access to it. Of course that makes sense.
I mean, it's a choice, right?
Yeah.
Why, otherwise, he'd just be like firing, lightning fireworks from his fingers in the Senate, right? He's making a choice.
Yes. Anyways, love that.
My final question, we joked about this a little bit when we were doing the review, and it's kind of jokey, but I'm also fascinated by it. Ken, how do you feel about the headcanon that the Force healer is still there on Yavin when Luke arrives? And if Cassian gave her a sense of clarity, is she like, holy God, the waves coming? Like she sends Cassian, across the way. Does like Luke land on Yavin, and she's just like, oh my God, like falling over and please can I touch you? And just like
the
total
opening
meme territory of like, oh, eyes bigger, glowing red.
The opening scene of Back to the Future where Marty hits that guitar with the amp and he just flies back. Luke lands and is like, Carrie, as we know he says, right? And she just flies back. Yeah, no, I love that. I absolutely love the idea of by the way, the subculture of inserting Andor people into New Hope now that we know is fascinating to me. I don't want that to end. I love those memes. Yeah, she's like the Dianoga in the from a certain point of view story. She probably grabs Luke's leg and pulls him down. It's like, holy mo, yeah. But by then, yeah, I'd be fascinated. That would be a character I'd be fascinated to track going forward. Again, not saying she opens up a force healing business, but she now has a pretty good idea that what she believes in is right. And talk about gathering, talk about who you've been and what you've done leading you to moments. A little farm boy from Tatooine is a great example of that too. Now, the question I have, and Jen, you can jump on this after me. I'm done ranting here. What happens when Bail Organa says to her, "This is my daughter Leia"?
That's where I was going.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
That's where I was going. Yep. That to me would be so beautiful and neat to see that, and to see Leia's reaction to her telling her, "Oh my gosh, the Force is strong with you." Oh, that's where my mind went. Because with Luke, I'm like, well, comedically, I'd want her to be like, I don't really feel anything.
Well, yeah, with Leia, I imagine Leia's reaction would be in the same ballpark as Cassian's, just a little less afraid of things. It's just her going, "Yeah, no, I have a clarity of purpose. I know what I'm doing here." Not in an arrogant way, but just like, yeah, thanks. But in the back of her head, being like, "Yeah, there are these moments, there are all these things. There are things I'm feeling." It'd be a wonderful conversation.
Yeah, I mean that's a fascinating trajectory of. Leia's been around Force users with Obi-Wan. Clearly, it's a belief in the Organa household.
Right.
She senses Luke when he calls out to save him in Bespin, and she probably just writes that off of like, I didn't know Luke had that Force ability to make telephone calls to other people's heads, but that's all Luke, not me.
Right.
Because she says in Return of the Jedi, you have a power that I could never have, that I could never understand. Which I like. I like your headcanon, Jen, that the Force either tried to talk to her and she's like, nah. I don't want to deal with it. The Luke thing for me is obviously like some people in the Alliance would have interacted with Kanan and Ezra, and so some cells would have been like, yeah, no, I saw the dude, the flips and the lightsabers, and like so. But for Luke coming to the Alliance, coming to Yavin, wearing the lightsaber loud and proud on his hip, and being his enthusiastic farm boy self, going like, yes, the Force is real and I'm on a path, and going around the base going, can anybody help me? I need to find out more information. What do you guys know? Like, he's so enthusiastic and loud about it. He's like so the opposite of everything we've been talking about, of people getting vibes and denying themselves. His mind is a sun-filled space, right? At the beginning there of that. I just kind of feel like a part of the whole New Hope idea isn't just Luke and Leia's prominence in the rebellion, but also like he must be such an injection to the Alliance of the Force is real. Here's this kid who has a lightsaber and wants to be a Jedi and maybe won't even shut up about it. That, for the Force healer, there must be some sort of like, I mean, I'm kind of joking about the touching and getting blown away, but just that he must bring such energy.
Yeah.
The Force healing line, I think, probably grows longer once Luke gets there, because he's such a symbol of this is real, it's good, let's be loud and proud.
I think so. I think there's also that component who's like, dude goes to Burning Man once and he comes back with that necklace and he's wearing it all. And he's talking about his alternate home, or this is his alternate home. That's the real home. My favorite reaction is Carson Teva in Ahsoka, where Harris kind of talks about Jason and his father, and he's just kind of like, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think there's some people who have time for it, and some who don't. Yeah. Any other thoughts before we wrap up from either of you?
Look, hey, we're doing this continued series because Andor has continued to inspire conversations, as all Star Wars properties do, let's be clear. But I just think this is, now that it's wrapped and we have the benefit of having these 2 years to go back, and because it connects so strongly with Rogue One, it literally walks right into it. The ideas carry forward and source. And for a series that is lauded for being unique and different in the Star Wars storytelling world, which I believe it is, I do believe it just is like so many other things, completely connected. The emotional canon we talk about is so present. So that's why we're diving in even more, and I love doing it. Great topic today.
I think that's great. And I think another thing to bring it back to the Jennifer's original, a great quote from Tony Gilroy about shoehorning it in. I think
didn't say shoehorning. I don't know what I said shoehorning, but he said he used a different word. I can't remember though.
Needing to make it fit. I'll look it up. The massive amount of endless Tony Gilroy interviews. I'm sure we can Google it. No, my final thought is I think it's great that it wasn't there. Then it sort of blossomed toward the end, because it's another great way to set up Rogue One. Because for as much as people love Rogue One because it's a gritty film, no lightsabers until the end with Vader, like, the Force is everywhere. The story happens vitally in a holy city. Krennic brags about getting rid of the Jedi. It's the faith in the Kyber crystal, all the faith in the Force that is being talked about from the Guardians of the Wills. It's so important in Rogue One that I think it's really important that Andor ramped up to it.
Indeed. Indeed.
All right. You want to take us home, Ken?
I do want to take us home. I have clarity of purpose in that. All right. We are ForceCenter. You can find us on social media at ForceCenter Pod, especially on Blue Sky. Our Facebook page, if you're over there, is ForceCenter Podcast. The podcast is available on a lot of spots: iHeartRadio, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and more. Don't forget, on the podcast feed only, you get rebroadcast episodes of Data Bank Brawl, our long-running series from 2016 to 2020. That is an often hilarious, sometimes gritty and bloody fight between two Star Wars characters. Merch available, as we said up top, at TeePublic, or check out our Fourth Wall shop. Links down below on YouTube. If you're on YouTube, give us a like, leave a comment, all those nice things. Support us directly at patreon.com/ForceCenter. You can follow me at Ken Napzok or my website, kennapzok.com. Jen, where can they find and follow you?
You can find me on Blue Sky, Instagram, YouTube at Jennifer Landa, or TikTok at Jennifer Landa 1138.
There you go. All right, Joseph, take us home. Good stuff today, and we will wait for the Force Healer Luke scene for all of us to dig into.
Yeah, just a 2-pack action figure. Force Healer with touch and action. Yeah, you can find me on Blue Sky and Instagram as well, and you can visit my website, josephscrimshaw.com, for links to all the film stuff I'm doing and my blog, Finish Your Monsters. Thank you very much, and may the Force be with you.